Hi, my name is Miriam, and this is the Black TV Show podcast. This is where I talk about my favorite TV show episodes. Currently talking about season 2 of The Cosby Show. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 30. The Cosby Show season 2, episode 7, Denise's Drives. Just letting you know, you're probably wondering why am I on episode 7 and we didn't do episode 6. I am skipping episode 6, which is the Halloween episode. I'm going to leave that for the month of October, because it's more fitting for the actual holiday of Halloween. So we're going to skip over and do episode 7. So we start off in the living room, and Theo is running down the stairs and basically breaking off the banister. And then he goes to get a magazine from the table, and then he's going back and basically damaging the banister again, making going up the stairs. And Cliff was like, whoa, wait, you need to stop. You are breaking the banister, and your mom and I cherish it, and you all made it broke and weak, and it's all your fault, so Cliff tells Theo to call Mr. Lucas to fix the banister. Claire and Denise come back from the DMV, and this is the first time I found out what the DMV stands for. It's driver motor vehicle and they came back from the DMV, and Denise has her license. Congratulations! I remember getting my license, I believe, when I was 16, almost probably 17 at that point, because I failed twice. Let me know if you guys have failed your driver's test. I failed the both times I tried to pass. Right after that test, I was able to have a car, and then the third time that I went for my test, I had no car to drive. So it sucked. I was very disappointed. I feel like I had some tears because I was like, I'm ready to conquer the world by driving. So but congratulations to Denise, she got her license. And the phone rings, and Cliff picks it up and says he needs to go downstairs to his office because there's a patient there. And Denise was like, oh, no, but I have something to say to you. And Cliff was like, oh, okay, then say it. And she was like, you know what, let's talk about it later, since you gotta go. And so Cliff and Claire are wondering, what does she want? And Claire was like, I think she wants your car, she says to Cliff, to borrow. And Cliff was like, no. I think she wants your car. And Claire was like, I don't think she would want my car. It's a station wagon. And I looked it up. I was like, what is a station wagon? Because we're going to be hearing that terminology a lot in this series, it seems like. Because I remember hearing it many times throughout that seasons. But a station wagon, it seems like they don't exist anymore. Let me know if you still have a station wagon. When I was looking it up on Google, it was like it's kind of outdated now, but back then it was a thing. And so Claire mentions that her car is a station wagon. And when was the last time you've seen a teenager drive a station wagon? When I looked at that car, yeah, I agree with Claire. It doesn't look like what a teenager would drive. And Cliff was like, oh, I guess I gotta hide my car. And so we're in the kitchen, and Theo is on the phone with Mr. Lucas about the banister. And Denise comes in, and once Theo's on the phone, she tells him she got her license. That's how she kept saying. And so Theo's happy for her, because now it might be a great thing for him when he wants to get a motorcycle. So Denise mentions that she is planning to get a car, but the parents don't know yet. She's waiting for the right time to tell them about the new car, but she wants someone there happy in a good mood. That's probably why she was like, let's talk about it later, because probably she thinks that Cliff's mind is all about the appointment in his office. And so she even found a great car already, a used car for $1,600. I don't know, would that be nowadays in 2021, is that a good price for a used car? I don't know. Last summer I got a brand new car It was in the 20,000s. And I felt like I got a good deal. It was in the low end compared to like if I went to a higher car brand. And I felt great when I bought the car, although my bank account had a dent, unfortunately, because of that vehicle. But it's okay, that's life. That's just life. So Theo was like, "Oh, so you're gonna ask our parents for money?" And Denise was like, "No, I have the money. I've had it saved in my savings account." I was like, "Damn, girl, at 17, you got $1,600 in your bank account." Actually, if I think about it, I probably would myself had $1,600 in my bank account, because when I was in high school, I didn't even spend money. Like, it was very rare for me to spend money of my own. Usually I would ask for money of my parents. So it makes sense. I feel like once I got to university, it was a struggle that I, didn't reach that. That wasn't like the high amount in my bank account. And so Theo tells Denise that, she needs to be responsible. She needs to be, doing the oil changes. Don't let anyone drive when they're drinking. And so Denise was like, "Why are you telling me this stuff?" And Theo was like, "Well, if you mess up, I won't get my motorcycle." I was like, "Oh, so Denise was like, oh, so this is all about you then. We're putting this on you, basically." And so we cut to Cliff's office in the basement, and there's two patients, or I keep saying patients, but it's a husband and wife that are sitting there. They're just waiting there for him to come in, and he comes in, and I don't know if it's one of his staff members. I'm not sure if she's a nurse or something. Gives Cliff a paper. And so he reads the paper, and he gives the news to them that they are pregnant. They're in shock. They're like, "What the heck? How does this happen?" And like literally the guy says, "How did this happen?" And Cliff looks to the side being like, "Did they not learn the birds and the bees here?" So he starts talking about the bees. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't really realize he was going to vocally say that." It was crazy when I was watching this to write notes, because I guess I just didn't remember the scene. But I was like, "Damn, he was actually going to go with the birds and the bees, basically." And the guy was like, No, I know how it happens. I just didn't know I could make this happen." And Cliff was like, "Well, the human male is capable to make this happen all the way till their 70s and maybe even beyond." And the guy was like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're having a baby." And Cliff looks at them and be like, "I didn't do anything. I didn't create this baby." Like, it felt like Cliff was like in a situation where like he's to be blamed because he's the one who brought the news to them. So he's like, "I didn't do anything. I wasn't part of this." And so then they start thinking about, "Oh wow, our son is gonna have a baby brother or baby sister." And so Cliff asks about their son. Their son is 26 years old, and he has a boy that's 5 years old. So this new baby that they're having will be younger than their grandchild. That is crazy. I feel like that was a thing back in Africa, I feel like, where, the oldest child already had a baby, and the youngest one is born basically either the same time or younger. I feel like this is common in our culture. Probably not as much now in 2021, but maybe about 20 years ago, this was probably very common, just because during the baby boomer generation, that was the case, I felt like. I feel like that was the case. But yeah, it seems very weird, because then, the aunt or uncle will be younger than the grandchild, which is weird, because it's like, oh, the grandchild will be looking down basically to their aunt or uncle. Like, it's weird to think it like that, but I feel like I've run into situations where people have been in that kind of situation. And it seems very normal. So Cliff mentions that, no matter what with this whole situation, you two will always be older than everyone else. I feel like that makes them feel worse in this situation. And so Cliff was like, okay, well, we need to book another appointment, to check up on the pregnancy. And they booked that appointment. And the couple says, like, this is the most laughing we've done in, like, years. And Cliff was like, yeah, it's good to laugh, And so then we cut to the living room, and Claire is reading, and Cliff comes in, laughing, and starts talking about what happened, about that whole pregnancy situation. And Claire was just like confused, he's just talking and laughing at the same time. I've done that so many times with my friends, and I could tell my friends are just not getting the joke or not getting why I'm laughing. It's hard, because if you're already if you're still stuck on that laugh, you can't stop laughing about the situation. It's hard to really explain what's going on. And also, it's different when you are there compared to someone is not there and you have to explain what happened. It's not as funny. So I understand Claire is like, so this is what happened, this is what's making you laugh. This is weird. I swear I've been in this situation. I feel like I'm in this situation at least once every 2 months, where I would tell a friend what happened, and they would be like, huh? So Denise sees Cliff is laughing and decides to go into the living room. She's still in the kitchen with Theo, and so she decides to go into the living room to talk to Cliff and Claire about the new car. So she goes in and she's like, oh, I see you're laughing. Cliff right away was like, you can't borrow my car. And she's like, I don't want to borrow your car. And Claire was like, well, you can't borrow my car. And Denise was like, I'm not wanting to borrow your car. I want to get my own car. And they were in shock. They're like, huh? So where are you going to get the money to buy this car? And she said that she has enough money in her savings to buy a car. Because she's done such a great job saving. And Claire was like, no, you haven't. So the only reason why you have the savings account and have the money that you have in the savings account is because we didn't let you spend it. I didn't know that parents have that much control over children's personal savings account. I understand trust. You can't touch that until the child is 18. But if you're just creating a savings account, because I don't think my parents really once I got a job, I just didn't. They didn't look into my finance. I was on my own and dealt with it myself. So it was weird to see that the parents had control over the account. They bring up examples from the past about a dead fish, about a bracelet, about it was a whole bunch of things that she really, really wanted to buy, but the parents did not let her. And Denise was like, well, yeah, because after a while I didn't want it, but I want a car. And Cliff was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go check the car out first before you buy it. And Denise was like, what? I know you're gonna say no, because if there's one little scratch, you're gonna say no, we can't buy the car. And Denise starts to get upset. She's like, it's my money. Why won't you let me buy it? And Claire was like, well, if your dad doesn't approve, you're not getting the car. We're not letting you drive. Basically, they're saying we're not letting you drive a broken car. Denise starts saying that this is, I feel like, an iconic line from the series. And she says, it's my money. I can do whatever I want. Aren't we still in America? And the way she does it, the way her emotion is, the way, she's like, aren't we in America? Duh. We are. And she did such a good job with this scene. And all of a sudden you see Claire and Cliff, they just get upset, and Theo jumps in and says he tries to talk to Denise, but Cliff was like, Theo, go back in the kitchen. We need to talk to Denise. And he's just trying to talk to Denise, and Cliff was like, no, go back in the kitchen. So Theo goes back in the kitchen because he's scared that he might not get that motorcycle, you know what I mean? And so Claire tells Denise to go sit down and talks about how Claire and Cliff have been her safety net all her life, and that's what happens when you're a parent. They've taken that responsibility of being her safety net, and the way she is behaving. If Denise Claire straight up was like, Denise, you should take what you have in your bank account and go discover America. So basically, I feel like in a way she's like, if you really are like this, you might as well leave the house and discover what America is all about, you know? Denise says, so Denise apologized. And so Cliff starts asking about the questions about the car. So he's like, how much is the car? She's like $1,600, so $1,600. Yeah, and how much do you have in your bank account? $1,600. And so Cliff was like, oh, so you're gonna have $0 after you buy the car. So Claire points out, what about insurance? And she mentions that Denise would have to pay $800 in insurance once a year, every year. Wow, damn, that's pretty good, I feel like now, because last year I had to pay $2,000, and I know this year I'm getting prepared, I have to pay $2,000 in insurance. It got expensive. $800 is pretty good, I feel. But it's 1985, so it's a little different. And Claire also mentions, like, what about gas? Because in order to drive, you need gas. You need gas money. Also, oil change, registration, tire change. And Denise is like, I will figure it out. Like, and Cliff says, this is what America is. This is America. Just like, I'm like thinking about Childish Gambino's song, This is America. But like, that's what Cliff is saying. This is America. You're gonna, own a car, but have no money to drive around. So Denise says, if they loan her the money, she would pay them back. And Cliff was like, you already owe us $400,000. Damn, that's a lot of money. But I guess that's over her 17 years, right? So Denise and Cliff end up getting up and leaving the house to go check out that car. And we end Act 1 right there, and we go into Act 2. Mr. Lucas comes to check the banister and says he has to take out the whole banister in order to fix it. And we cut to the kitchen where, Claire comes in, and Denise and Cliff come back from checking the car. And basically, Cliff is like, when we first got there, the man saw Cliff, so he noticed that Denise brought her father with him, and so he pretended that he couldn't find the keys. And so Cliff says, oh, well, I guess we forgot to bring the money. And so the guy found the keys, and they gave the keys, and they start the car. The car was beautiful. Even Cliff mentions it's a beautiful car. It's an amazing car. But once he starts turning on the car, it made a lot of noise, bumping, and it was bumping around. It was just bad. And when Cliff pressed on the gas, the car literally said, what? And then it started vibrating. And like Cliff, when he's explaining this, he's making so many noises with his mouth and using his body to vibrate. It's hard for me to explain that. Take a listen to this how he explains.
I put the key in the ignition, turned the thing, and it went. Don't say it. The two of us are sitting there, and it's not running yet. It's just thinking about it. And the car, just the right side now, just the right side said. And she's sitting there like this, and, like she's dancing. See? But it has not started up yet. The car has not started up yet. So I pressed down on the gas, and you think I'm lying. The car said, what? I'm not lying. The car said, so I put the thing in reverse. I let go of the emergency brake and pushed down on the gas, and the car said, oh, you want to go backwards. So now we back out, and the thing takes us, and now it's vibrating. I mean, this motor is just... I look in the rearview mirror, and whatever I'm going to run over, there's 12.
So Cliff asks, Denise, how much would it be to fix his car? She says, I don't know, $200. And Cliff is like, I doubt it. And so Mr. Lucas comes in and says, like, can I wash my hands, from, what he was doing? And Cliff was like, yeah, go ahead. There's a sink right there. And Cliff says, we're going to look for a nice, safe, used car. And Mr. Lucas heard this conversation and says, my Aunt Margaret is selling a 1962 car. So that's, I don't know, it's 1985 during this episode. So that car is 23 years old. Would I want a car that's 23 years old? So a car that's 23 years old would be a car from 1998. I don't think so. I think I'm good with my 2020 car. Damn, to me that seems very old. But I feel like back in the day that was common to have such a big age gap. Like nowadays, I don't think it's common. Like I feel like more people get brand new cars than they do getting 20-year-old used cars. So later, it's later in the evening or later in the day, and Theo comes to the kitchen and gets the ice cream. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention. Mr. Lucas says that he put a radio into the car, and then they decide to go check out the car. So later on, Theo comes in the kitchen and gets this like ice cream bar. I don't even know what it was. It was frozen, but Rudy calls it candy. And Rudy comes in and says, can I have half of it? And Theo's like, I can't break it in half. And she grabs a hammer. Really? A hammer for ice cream treats? And so he literally uses the hammer to break this. So she has half, he has half, and Claire comes in and like, why would you put something in your mouth that you need to use a hammer to break? That is so true. It doesn't make sense. Because then that clearly is going to damage your teeth if the fact that you're using a hammer. Claire and Theo, they start having a conversation, and Theo mentions that, Denise is very responsible, and Claire was like, what? That's so weird of her brother to say that. And you can tell Claire knows Theo is up to something. And he brings up a motorcycle, and she was like, no. No, no, no. And so then Denise and Cliff come back with the car, and Denise is so happy with the car, and they bring the car to the backyard. Theo goes out to see the car and talks to Cliff, and brings up, the motorcycle, I think I'll look good with a motorcycle. And Cliff is like, no, 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 no. And so Denise says she would give anything for this car. And right when she says that, Cliff closes her mouth because, like, damn, you're trying to negotiate. Like, you're not trying to give all your money. For me, like, when I got my car, I let my dad and my uncle negotiate because I know I was not good. I'm weak. I'll be honest. I'm weak. So I was like, I need someone that's can negotiate better for me. So Cliff goes in and talks to Mr. Lucas to negotiate, and he starts off with $500. Mr. Lucas says no, and then Cliff says $750, close but not great. And then Cliff says $850, and Mr. Lucas was like, yeah, you got a deal, and that was the cost of the car. So basically that's half of Denise's money. So she has now enough money to deal with like insurance and actually no, she doesn't. Insurance, they said it was $800. So clearly she must be getting more money after this, but it's a pretty good deal, Cliff and so Denise is like super happy that she got the car. She didn't even ask for the price. So Cliff was like, do you know what the price is of what you're paying for this car? And she's like, what is it? $850. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. And so Cliff and Claire and Denise, they go for a ride. And they come back from their ride, and, Claire was like, oh, the car is amazing, but you got to take a test or a quiz. So Claire asks, if one of your girlfriends asks you for the car to drive around the block, do you give them the keys? And Denise says no. So that was the right answer. And then Claire was like, if it's a rainy day and you went to go out to get some food and there's someone outside that's good looking like Billy D or Nate King Cole, of course, these are not the people of today for us, I guess we would say if it was 2021, we'd probably say Chris Brown, Usher, something like that. Would you give that person a ride? And she was like, nope, I would not give that person a ride. And so Cliff asks a multiple choice question. You can, if your car is under repair, A, do you come to us, the parents? B, do you find a way to get the money yourself? C, find a way to get the money yourself. D, find a way to get the money yourself. And she was like, can I skip this question? And Claire was like, no. And she said, the answer is B, C, and D. And so they're like, oh, okay, you passed. And so it's later on, and Cliff literally jumps down. Like, I was like, I felt like I missed that whole scene of him going down the stairs because he went so fast. And Theo was like, oh, don't damage the banister. We just got it fixed. So then Theo says that, he wants a 1980 Ferrari. Like, they have a conversation about cars. And Cliff says, that's like $400,000 to $500,000. And Theo's like, yeah, no problem. Cliff was like, huh? Well, no problem. So you have all this money? And Theo was like, no, I have $788 in my savings account. And he won't ask for Cliff to help. And so Theo gives the magazine to Cliff, and it's actually just a model. It's a toy model of a Ferrari. And he's like, oh, okay. So Cliff says that he actually came down to talk to Theo to talk about his motorbike and to go look for one. Theo actually believes him, and all of a sudden Cliff was like, no, this is a joke. And we end the episode right there. So we had David Livingston back again. I feel like this is now his 5th episode. I have no idea. I have lost track of how many episodes, but he is playing a repeated character at least. Because he played Mr. Lucas for that episode where the water was going down in Cliff's office. And then the couple that's playing, that's going to become parents, was played by Anne Flood and Paul Harding. They've done a lot of acting. None of the stuff that they did I know of. So I'm not going to go into what they've done in the past. So I feel like the lesson of this episode is listen to your parents. They know best. I feel like that is the case because imagine if Denise had to went and got the car herself and then had no money for gas, no money for insurance, no money for registration. So listen to your parents about when you're especially buying your first car. I definitely went to my dad about buying my first car, and I'm an adult. So I feel like that's the case. The question is that I have for you guys is, when did you get your first car? Tell me on Twitter, on Instagram, Black TV Shows Pod, using the hashtag Denise Drives. Let me know when you got your first car. I'll tell you the age that I got my first car was 25. I am pretty old for a person to get a new car, or I guess just a car in general. But I just didn't have money until then, so I got my car and I am happy with it. It's amazing. So let me know when you got your first car. And the next episode is episode 31, season 2, episode 8, Rudy Suits Up. I will see you all on the next one.